G'day people and welcome to another week of Fantasy Chats with Heff and Checkers. This week we're doing a round 7 recap here on the Marmalade channel. Checkers, how was your weekend, mate?
Great. Round 7's crazy. So out of whack with the opening round, gather round. Round 7 sounds a bit like we're getting into the season a little bit.
Well, what's crazy is as well, like because we had opening round, it's kind of like the 8th round really completed when you think about the weeks. It's like...
You don't feel like gather rounds are around, and you don't feel like opening rounds are around in some ways. So yeah, it's a bit weird to hear round 7. We're almost at the halfway point, really, in the scheme of things.
It feels like it anyway, or at least a third of the way through.
It's good. How did your teams go on the weekend? I don't really want to talk about mine, so we'll crack with you first.
Yours is probably still better than mine, but in AFL Fantasy, it was a positive because I still came up in the ranks after another week. So I'm inside the top 10,000 now. I've gone up to 8,881, so lots of 8s in there. Scored 2,209 last week, so not too bad. Still going with the unique strategy. Kind of like a sob story for the weekend. I've decided I didn't want to field Zach Reid on my field anymore, so I made a play to get Nick Martin up, and yeah, Zach Reid scored more than Nick Martin on the weekend, but luckily a few of my uniques put up some decent points to keep me going. How'd you go?
Similar. I traded Zach Reid to Cozzy Pickett.
Oh, dear.
And Zach Reid outscored Cozzy Pickett, who was playing Richmond, and I thought he had 18 disposals and 1 goal too, and I feel like that's a pretty good game for a forward, but it only netted 65 points, so not enough tackles, not enough marks. Maybe if you kick 3 goals instead of 1 goal too, it would have been an okay score. But yeah, that hurt a little bit. I dropped down to 4,190 in the ranks. So I was sitting 300 for about 3 weeks in a row there, and we're in the 4,000s, but I'm pretty positive signs. I feel like Cozzy can bounce back against West Coast. We've got getting rookies off the field, so it's not all horrid.
Sorry, I might have missed that, but what was your total score for the week?
I don't have it, but I can find it. Give me one second. It was probably like 2,079, so not enough. I missed out maybe like 50 to 70 points there.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's a big drop in rank, so it must have been pretty low.
Well, a lot of people would have rolled Dacos as captain, which is what I sort of missed out on. I think I had Rosie, so it was about a 30-point net loss there, and then probably about a 30-point net loss on having Cozzy on the field. So,
well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you, because your captain scores have been quite abhorrent this year, and you've still managed to score pretty well. So you got Rosie. I went with Max Gawn on the Thursday, which I think a lot of people who had him went with as well, so that was a big boost as well. It's probably the difference between our scores really in the end. It's like an extra 50-odd points there, and then probably one other primo going big, so it is what it is. You have those weeks, like I feel like I had those over the first few rounds, and I'm starting to finally claw my way back now. Looking at team value is like another thing that I found interesting. It's something I just assumed mine was completely shit, given where I was ranked, but having a look at it now compared to others, I'm at the 22.5 million. And then looking at some of the leagues I'm in, it's like up there with I'm in the content creators league with all the AFL fantasy dudes, and it's like it's up there in the top half of the value. So maybe there is some hope left for my team. What's yours looking like? Do you have it in front of you, or
22.27? So
yeah,
maybe a little bit off. I think that might be because I'm holding 150k on the bench as well. So does that include in your value?
If you've got something in the bank, it doesn't include. Yeah. So
I'm just looking at the guy who's ranked third, and he's 22.7. There's a 22.8. There's some 600k more. Geez, looking good. But interesting one is team value after the buys. I think is like crazy important. You got to come to the buys with a bit of cash and some value in your side, and then it's what you do with it during those buy weeks. You can sort of stuff it up a little bit if you some people plan to attack those buys by I'm going to make a lot of cash, and they screw all their trades up and it ruins their season. So value
definitely.
guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you want to strong.
You want to be able to make as many moves. That's all right. You want to be able to make as many moves as you possibly can through that time as well. So having some cash in the bank is definitely good there. What about the Supercoach side of things? You still going there, or have you given up?
We're in the 30,000s now. It's every week it drops a few more thousand. I'm not too promising that. I don't think I'm going to finish anywhere worth bragging about. So I just sort of roll the trades each week into something that I think will be like a bit funky. So maybe I'm going a bit extra point of difference there. Maybe I'm trying out players that I don't have the the guts to try out in fantasy. So, I think that's what's costing me sometimes, but is what it is. Yourself?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So, like, I'm in the top 7. I'm in the 7th ranked league in the comp. It was the 3rd ranked, and I think it was even top at one stage, league in the whole Supercoach competition, right? And on the weekend, I scored 2,421. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's a huge score. That's going to, net me a massive... I might slash my rank in half again. And then I looked at everyone else's score in that kind of good league, and it was all 2,500 plus. Like, massive scoring over the weekend. So with that, 2,421 dropped me 767 places in my overall rank on the weekend. So... yeah, you got to be scoring big in Supercoach to be going well at the moment. So it's a pretty hard ask for anyone to be clawing their way back. So I think I'm ranked, 9,119. So I'm actually going better in AFL Fantasy now, which is crazy to think how things have been going. So I don't know, I guess you just got to keep kind of clawing your way out of these holes and trying to kind of keep moving your rank upwards, I guess. Anyways, let's probably get into some of the talking points for the week. We always start off with the pod of the week. Who was your pod of this week or the week coming up? Who are you liking?
I got 2 on the table. One might just scrape out of pod territory, but it just wanted to bring up the discussion of, is it too late to be looking at Ned Long? 10.2% owned at the moment. So if you say the pod ownership is usually under 10%, maybe he's just breached that, but he was started as a rookie price, so I feel like he's averaged 93 in the last 3, 660k, locked his spot in the Collingwood midfield, got a late buy. Is he someone you can bring in to sort of... I know a lot of people got Garcia and Sam Davidson on the table this week as potential trade-outs, so is it someone who you can sort of almost sideways trade net 20 to 30 points more a week from and still be a point of difference? Because 10% is still fairly point of difference if you're talking about midfielders, and a lot of people roll in the same midfield. So I wondered if that was a discussion we could have real quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because he's got the break even of 33. So, like, with these kind of guys, I don't really care what they score. Like, I guess this time of year, you probably do want to be trying to go one up, one down and bringing a premium in. But with a break even of 33, if he's going to go on and average, 90 for the year, he's going to make you an extra couple 100k even from this point. And it just depends what you can see him averaging from here on in. I think last week a lot of people did jump on because he was that little bit cheaper. I think he was closer to the 600 mark last week. But like you said, you've got a lot of those guys, those rookies that are kind of becoming mid-prices now that are underperforming. If he's the sideways one that you go to and to keep that cash build going and, you probably eventually want to trade him out, I don't think it's too much of an issue. Like, you're not going to get much better around that price. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking Garcia, Davidson, even Ryan Marriage. There's a lot of players in that 600 to 700k price bracket now. And I've seen a lot of people going one up, one down, and maybe not picking the one up that, they're just grabbing what they can at the up because there's not many ready. But there's going to be a lot of players ready in coming weeks. There's talking Callum Mills. There's Bontempelli sort of have the sub on the weekend. He might be a bit cheaper as well. So do we wait 4 or 5 weeks for these guys to bottom out and take a Ned Long, take some good scoring for 4 to 5 weeks and make a little bit of coin? I just see a Ned Long versus Garcia, a Ned Long versus Sam Davidson probably being a 30-point net trade, which is usually a pretty good trade. Now we want to go from a 50 average player to an 80 or a 70 to 100. So yeah, I think it could be one where you got one more week to jump on, and I just he's been hotly on my trade in bracket as a bit of a pod, 10%. I don't think a lot of people will be trading him in this week, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But my real pod, we could roll onto if you want. We can stop the Ned Long chat. Just one to think about, I guess. Shaun Mannagh. I brought Cozzy Pickett to the table last week. Didn't quite work out. Shaun Mannagh's even less owned, 0.52%. Obviously, mature age pickup last year, went okay as a cash cow. Broke into the side, he scored 88, 57, 90, and then on the weekend, 118 against Carlton in the loss. Playing on the wing, had 13 contested disposals, 566 metres gained. So I think he had like 21 kicks or something like that on the wing, which was a bit interesting. Gryan Miers out with concussion. Is there a role there for a couple of weeks where you could roll a Shaun Mannagh and potentially scrape a couple tons? Maybe mid-board draft relevant. I don't know if he's still kicking on any waivers in draft, but it could be one that just sparked my interest with the role that he had on the weekend. A lot of kicking, mature age as well. Someone who hasn't played a lot of footy but is still mature age, or a lot of AFL footy, and very lowly owned. So
I have no problems with him as a scorer. I think he can put up at least 80 pluses for the next few weeks, and probably for the season. The only thing with forwards at the moment is I'm not playing a rookie on field in my forward line at the moment, and in fact, I've got another 2 forwards sitting in my midfield at the moment. It's more about how are we replacing our rookies? Who are we replacing these guys with? Is that the kind of area of the ground I need to be targeting? I think my biggest issue is probably my midfield with guys like Ashcroft, Lindsay, Lawler still on the field. And, maybe if he's still someone to go with, maybe you could move Bailey Smith forward, into the midfield or something like that. But I reckon it's probably, you've got guys like Petrarca that are going to be pretty cheap at the moment that you can kind of get up to. There's a handful of other names as well that you might be able to get up to in your midfield. I feel like just bringing in another forward might be hampering the structure a bit and hampering some of the scoring potential you could get into the midfield or something like that. That's my only thoughts there.
Yeah, I agree on that. There's a lot of forwards on the table and a lot of forwards that probably aren't top 6 forwards, but are sharking us a little bit with some good juicy scores at the moment. I don't even know if Petrarca is quite going to be in top 6 forward category at the end of the year. We've got a very easy fixture at the moment, and all Melbourne players are scoring pretty well. So I just see it as one where maybe he's picking up Gryan's role, does scores well for 2 to 3 weeks, and then locks himself into the team because he's playing so well. Not that he's out of the best 22, but he locks himself into a good scoring role. Maybe they go, Shaun Mannagh's killing it. We're going to keep him on the wing. Or we're going to chuck him in the midfield a bit more, or sort of on form, plays himself into some great form and just gets a really nice role as someone who's really lowly owned. I mean, George Hewitt's still tossing up tons. Someone who's really lowly owned. Maybe Shaun Mannagh tosses up another 100 this week, and then we see him roll on for a couple. It could be pretty juicy. One to watch, I think, over the next 4 weeks. I wouldn't pull the trigger in Classic this week. It's a bit dicey, but that's
I like
one.
it. Maybe not a 100 plus guy every week, but if you just look at his scoring so far, 88 when he returned, 57 a low week, but then in a game that's 88 was playing with Gryan Miers anyway. Scored 90 with playing with Gryan Miers for 3/4 of a game. Did see the bump last week, but it could just be him having a better performance as well. The Gryan Miers factor might not be a thing, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens this week. But I like him as an option. I drafted him in my dynasty draft in the first round, even though he was a 27-year-old, because I'm in the premiership window. Why not get a mature age guy who's going to score? Well, I think is going to score 80 plus most weeks onto your field. So no, I'm more than happy with that one. My pods for the week, I've got a couple. Anyone who's listened to the Keeper League knows my love affair with this guy, and that's Jake Lloyd. At the moment, he is averaging 88 this season. And when you look at he's coming up against GWS this week, and I think his record is quite good against them. If I look at his numbers here, he's had 100 average in their last 3 meetings, and that includes 149 from the last game he played against them in the final. So he does like playing against GWS this week. But I think with Dean Cox coming in as coach, he was kind of ostracised a bit last year. I think people like Matt Roberts were scoring a bit better, and because that kind of took his role in the halfback, he's moved up to the wing. But I think he's kind of found his place in that side, and he's turned into a bit more of a reliable scorer up on that wing. He's only 857k, so a lot of people last week were talking about going to Trent Rivers and stuff like that, who are a little bit cheaper, I guess, but there's a bit of role uncertainty there. I don't know, Lloyd's just that classic fantasy scorer that people always forget about, and he could be back to his best, I reckon, at the moment, and could be a good cheaper option for your defence if you need someone.
Hurts to say because I traded him out of a draft league last year. I'm pretty sure I traded him to Louis as well on the cheap.
Yeah, same.
Because he was dishing up 30s.
Yep.
Did you notice Nick Blakey went forward late in the game on the weekend and kicked 3 snags?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
Well,
so that's another thing
if
as
we
well.
have Nick Blakey maybe floating up the ground a bit more, and if we have, I know Riley Bice is killing it, but he's also his first year of footy, and I wouldn't rule out. It's a bit of a out of the box take, but I wouldn't rule out him getting arrested at some point or falling out of form at some point. What most rookies normally do, we see the rookie fall off eventually. I know he's mature age, but it's pretty rare that someone rolls a perfect season in their first year of footy. So maybe he's just Mr. Consistent down there. He's been there for 10 years, just rolling out fantasy scores. The only one to flag, I guess, is maybe Callum Mills. He's still having issues with his foot, training week to week, but when he does come back, does that hamper Lloyd's scoring? Or does Mills just play on the wing and it doesn't hamper Lloyd scoring at all? I don't know. But when he went up forward for that period last year and he was playing as a forward tagger, and when he was getting tagged down back, he was dishing up some gross scores, talking 20s, 30s, 40s. But when he wasn't doing that, and when he plays a nice kick-in role, he's put on some massive scores as well, like 140s. So we know halfback flankers at Sydney are pretty juicy anyway. You got Matt Roberts, Bice, Lloyd, and Blakey all scoring very well, pretty consistently. So.
Yeah, just a left field name. Well, not left field because he's been a fantasy star for ages, but someone people kind of forget about who's got the potential to go huge and win you a few games. So that's one pod I had. The other one is just like some underpriced rucks. So a couple of weeks ago, I did the Bales' show, Fantasy Fanatics, and we were talking about how this was like before Cherry had gone back-to-back big scores. And a lot of people were trading Cherry out that week, and they were going to go down to Flynn or maybe someone like Kieran Briggs, who they assumed had bottomed out, but has only bottomed out even further. So I'm looking at just a few unique rucks that are going massive at the moment, or I think have good runs. So Darcy Cameron's the first one on the list. Super under-owned for what he's dishing up at the moment. Been one of the most consistent rucks of the season. Has the Stanley Sam DeConning combo this week, which has been giving up heaps of fantasy points all year. And the other one I've got is Lloyd Meek, who this week comes up against Richmond. Toby Nankervis, like you saw Gawn put up a huge score. Rucks just score heaps against Nankervis because he's not overly accountable to them and kind of does his own thing while it lets the other ruck kind of do their thing as well. So the other two I've got there that I think would, everyone's either rolling with Tom DeConing, Max Gawn, or Tristan Cherry. If you're one of those guys that did pull the trigger down to a cheaper option a few weeks ago, you probably need to get back up because those guys are firing. And Lloyd Meek particular is, I think, 900k around that mark. So he might be an option for people to get up to. What are your thoughts with those?
Yeah, definitely. I did see Nank. I know he was a bit of a workhorse, but he looked a bit cooked against Gawn for the first, 3 quarters. I think Gawn took the foot off the pedal a little bit late. I think
he sat on the bench for the half last quarter. So
so a lot of Melbourne pulled the foot off the pedal in the last quarter. Richmond kicked a few sneaky ones late, but. Yeah, I mean, Nank's been having to shoulder a lot of the workload, so he does get a bit cooked from time to time, and I feel like Meek could cook him pretty well this week. What did Meek put up last week? It was a big, juicy one as well. He was he was on 47 at quarter time, so at one point I was like, holy shit, Meek might score like a 180 here today.
He scored 131 last week.
Yeah, they were running Archer Reed and Matt Flynn, who was the other one they're running? Jack Williams. In the ruck, so not really great competition. I mean, Nank's going to be a little bit harder, but yeah, I'd back him in for another ton. If there was a hot take on Lloyd Meek, I'd say he's probably due, back-to-back tons, which is pretty handy to trade in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, the Matt Flynn, they were rolling with Bailey Williams earlier, and like you said, Archer Reed, and Williams as well. Like it's been an easy ruck matchup all year, so. And I think that should continue against Richmond because that's been the other easy matchup. All right, what's your hot take for the week?
Well, I keep screwing up the Thursday night fixture. I keep putting my bloody VC loophole in there, and it fails. I keep trading in players playing on Thursday night. Last week, traded in Cozzy. That failed. So I'm like, do I leave Thursday nights alone? But this Thursday, Harry Sheezel, big game, 150 plus. Media's been hot on his back. You've seen Corns come out with the Shees ball tag. He had 32 and 119 against them last year. He's playing Essendon. I should put that out there. We saw last week Josh Dacos, I think, had 14 disposals in the first quarter, all uncontested off the halfback flank. We saw Still Side, Bottom and Dacos, who are sort of those runners out off the halfback and the wings that sort of give a lot of inside 50 entry, which I think is what Sheezel sort of plays as well. Score really well and have great games. Obviously, Sidebottom won the medal, so I just feel like Media on his back, playing at Marvel Stadium against Essendon, giving up a lot of points to players who play very similar to him, could see him going really big this week and sort of giving Corns a one-up in the media, You're
not worried about his comments during the week saying, I don't care about getting possessions anymore, I just want to do what I can for the team to win?
Yeah, I think what he can do for the team to win is get possessions. So that's his strongest suit. I feel like every question, I was at a presser yesterday with the North boys, and they were just panning. Every question was on Wardlaw about Sheezel's possessions and Sheezel's game, and nothing was about the game. It was all about Sheezel. And it's like, we saw this with Horn Francis earlier in the year, and usually when the media comes out, the good players stand up, and I think Sheezel's a good enough player to stand up and just go, yeah, I'm going to kick 3 goals and have 40 touches this week, and just really say, piss off.
Well, I hope you're right, because I think I own him in every salary cap format. So, I can see that happening. He's a class player, and I think once the media's on your back, someone like him, such a professional, in terms of just his lifestyle, his diet, but mainly his mindset. When it comes, he's like a real kind of meditator, breather, that kind of guy. I reckon he can shut that kind of shit out pretty well, and put up some good performances just to stick it up. And I think this weekend. So my hot take for the week. It's not a fantasy hot take. It's a kind of it's a different hot take this week. And I don't know if you watched the Sydney game on the weekend, but wearing their away kit with black shorts on the weekend, black isn't one of their colours. Sydney are red and white. So my hot take this week is the AFL needs more neutral colours in team uniforms, in team Guernseys. So if you think to the Premier League, or even that Guernsey that's right there behind you, I know that's a Pura Milk sponsorship there, but how good does it look having a neutral colour on a Guernsey that doesn't actually kind of represent or doesn't actually be part of the team colours? So my hot take is I think the AFL just needs to kind of be less scared, adopt the Premier League kind of model where every team has a third kit that doesn't feature one of their colours. It's a neutral colour or something else. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I know St Kilda sometimes roll out the yellow Guernsey and Indigenous round. They roll out the red, black, yellow kit.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of other clubs that maybe roll out kits. You see a lot of training Guernseys in those colours. I know there was infamous time at Collingwood where they weren't letting Port Adelaide wear prison bars, but they were training in teal kits at Collingwood.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. It's just maybe it's more a one-off rounds. So when you have those specialty rounds, Anzac weekend, some people could have rolled out some different colours in their Guernseys. We saw a lot of different designs, but not a lot of different colours. So didn't mind the Swan shorts. But did they wear them in the pre-season to get roasted? Was that what it was? It was in someone wore black shorts in the pre-season.
They wore black shorts in the pre-season, and they kind of finally brought them back out in the season. But if you look at the Premier League, every away kit, Everton on the weekend, that was my team, wore a grey and yellow kit coming up against Chelsea, who are the blue team, so you couldn't really wear, clashing colours there. Arsenal have that kind of bluey, purpley kind of away kit, and then they've also got a green and black and white one as well. So, it happens a lot in other sports, and I think it'd be a good marketing thing as well. You've just got a new Guernsey that you can kind of play with each year and kind of release and bring out something different. And, I think it'd be a good idea. It happens in other sports. I think the AFL is just too scared to go away from the traditional colours of each team. That's my take.
Gold Coast roll out the pink. I got one in my room.
The pink was great.
I can't see where it is, but they do have the pink Guernsey.
100%.
I know
like
Essendon sometimes roll out the grey Guernsey in clash games, but I haven't seen it too often.
North Melbourne had that orange Guernsey back in the day. Do you remember the orange Guernsey in North Melbourne? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the most hotly... This Guernsey here is very hard to track down. There's only 24 of them in the existence because they only wore them for one game. Yeah. And the orange Guernsey, I think, is very much the same. If you've got one there, you don't get rid of them. You track them down for 10 years. I know Andy Munro is still looking for one, so...
Needs to be more of those in the AFL. That's my hot take for the week. Anyways, checkers, we've passed the 20-minute mark, so we might as well wrap this up. What are your trade plans for the week?
At the moment, it's Garcia to Ned Long, and then depending on team selections and everything, maybe like a Kako or a Sam Davidson, just depending where rookies are named to potentially trade in, down to a rookie, bank some cash, hopefully Bont has a big score and has bottomed out, or someone's bottomed out next week, and I can sort of almost do a double upgrade next week. So that's my plans. Yourself?
I think I'm just gonna keep going with trying to get more rookies off the ground. So I'm gonna go Reed down to the best rookie available via the utility position. So don't really care where it is. And then I'm just going to go Lawler, who I had in the midfield on the weekend. I'm going to try to get him up to Petrarca. I should be able to get to that kind of mid 950, mid 900s K kind of mark. So the best available person there, I think it's probably going to be Petrarca, who I think is probably an F6 come the end of the year as well. So I can swing him down there when I need to and start moving some, maybe some players like Caleb Daniel or whatever out in the coming weeks and trying to get him up to a decent midfielder or whatever. So that's my plans for the week. Anyways, checkers, thanks for joining us for another week. Any big plans for the weekend? How many footy games are you going to?
maybe 3, I think, this week. We've had a bit on. We were on the Channel 9 Players Show on Monday. Yesterday we did a presser with North and Essendon. About to head off to a little presser with Jack Crisp for his consecutive games record. So it's been a busy week of footy, but we haven't had any footy games yet. So I feel like I'm doing something footy related every single day. But yourself, are you heading to any? Who plays? Port playing Ballarat.
Yeah, Crows are playing
in Adelaide this week. Damn.
I do usually have tickets to Crows games if I want to go, but I'm actually running a marathon on Sunday.
Ooh.
So yeah,
the Adelaide Marathon.
Yeah, that's right. On the May 4th in Adelaide. So if anyone's in Adelaide running it, come say good day. But yeah, I think I'm just going to take it easy, rest up, and make sure I'm fully prepared for that, just so I don't die and I can do the podcast next week.
Put the feet up on the lounge the day after and tune into all the footy. Have a good excuse to rest up and watch the footy all day.
That's the plan, mate. Yeah, not moving from the couch after that. I don't think physically I'll be able to, so as much as the family would like me to. Anyways, we might leave it there. Thanks for watching for another week, and we'll talk to you soon.